If I must starve, let it be in your arms, by Ignium 807. Chapter 8. 2 weeks later, Jaskier's leg is completely healed. He and Eskel are halfway across Sodden by then, sleeping mostly on the road and sharing a bedroll every night. Jaskier is content, glowingly so, but he misses Geralt terribly, and Eskel hears of a beast further south that he decides is too dangerous for company. The two are lying in bed wrapped up together when the time comes to part. Eskel rises with the dawn and Jaskier rises with him, unwilling to let the Witcher slip away without a proper goodbye. With his bags packed and his armor on, Eskel turns to his bard. "May I find you again?" he asks. "Someday?" Jaskier pulls him close. He's astounded how easily Eskel lets himself be moved, unsure of what he did to earn the trust of a man so accustomed to rejection. It warms his chest, and he hopes that Eskel can smell it, can understand the truth of his answer. "Any day," he swears. "I'll look forward to it." Eskel nods. He leans forward to brush his lips against Jaskier's cheek, so soft they're barely there. Jaskier is beaming when he pulls away. He watches as the Witcher leaves their room, follows the streak of black out the window as he rides away, and settles down to sleep once more with the smile still bright on his face. Geralt finds him a few days later, just as Jaskier knew he would. The town he and Eskel parted in is more of a city than anything, with plenty of taverns to perform in, and enough amusements to keep Jaskier busy for weeks. He makes sure he's seen walking the streets, leaving no doubt in the people's minds that this is the White Wolf's bard. Word will travel quickly, and when it does, it will reach Geralt's ears, sending him across the continent to Jaskier's side. Whispers come to him in a tavern one night of a slain Selkie a few miles away. Jaskier knows what that means. He brings his lute and sits on the edge of the town's main road, playing love ballads into the empty night air until he hears the thunder of hooves and the clatter of weaponry that means his Witcher has returned to him once more. "Jaskier," comes the low rumble. He's swept from his feet into a searing, filthy kiss that leaves no question as to what Geralt plans for the night. His lute falls to the ground as he raises his hands to hold Geralt closer. Jaskier's voice is halfway to wrecked by the time he pulls away. "Good to see you too, Geralt. Why don't we go find a—" His breath itches as Geralt's hands find their way under his chemise. "A room, love! Now!" Geralt drops his head between Jaskier's sweat-slicked shoulder blades and breathes. Sunshine and honey sweep over him, refreshing after so many nights apart. It terrifies him how much he needs this. Every time he's apart from Jaskier, he tells himself that their reunion will be casual, easy, and every time his plans are swept away by the all-consuming wave of affection and lust that crashes over him as soon as he lays eyes on tousled brown hair above colorful silk doublets. He wonders sometimes how he managed to walk the path for so long without this. It seems that he should have tired years before now, should have slowed down just a fraction too much and gotten his head taken off by the nearest thing with claws and teeth. Geralt thanks the gods that he did not, that he survived long enough to have Jaskier in his arms. "What do you think, Geralt? Geralt?" Lifting his head, Geralt tries to remember what Jaskier was talking about. It's no use, he wasn't paying attention. Jaskier slaps his arm lightly. "You oaf! I knew you weren't listening to me!" "And you spoke anyway." "Yes, well," Jaskier has the decency to look bashful. "I do that a lot, and you only pay attention half the time anyway, so I don't know why I bother." He huffs out a sigh, but the smile on his face ruins it. "I was asking what you think about going to Skellig for a while. I'm sure they have plenty of monsters out there, and I would so love to see the ocean. It's been quite a while since the last time I was there. It'll be beautiful in summer, too, so—" Geralt cuts him off with a kiss, the only way he has found, after 14 years of research, to reliably shut Jaskier up. "Skellig is fine." "Good. Great, actually." A dopey grin works its way across Jaskier's face, followed by a spike in the smell of honey wine. "Geralt," he murmurs, rolling over to press Geralt into the mattress, and that's the end of talking for the night. They go to Skellig. Geralt slays a few water monsters with enough teeth to tear an army apart. He takes a particularly strange one and makes it into a necklace for Jaskier. It's ugly and kind of gross, and Jaskier wears it every day. Spring merges slowly into summer, days lengthening as Jaskier switches out his layers for thin, breezy shirts that dance in the ocean wind. Geralt's white hair practically gleams in the summer sun. Jaskier's skin picks up a pleasant tan that makes his eyes shine blue as the sky above them. A town on the coast kicks them out, unwilling to serve a witcher and his whore. Geralt nearly guts the man that said it, more out of fury over Jaskier's honor than his own, but Jaskier talks him out of it with pleading eyes and quite a bit of shouting. They camp on the road that night. It's rough and hot, much less pleasant than an inn, especially with the knowledge of why they're camping hanging over their heads like a particularly nasty insult. But when Jaskier slides into his lap after dinner, kissing like he's drowning and muttering compliments against bare skin, Geralt can't find it in himself to care. Some towns welcome them. People have heard of the White Wolf and his bard. Rare as it is, sometimes Geralt is invited in with open arms and promises of good food and plenty of coin, if only he can take care of a few monsters. Sometimes the heads he brings back as proof of contract are met with cheers instead of revulsion. Jaskier learns new songs and writes some of his own. More often than not, he collapses into bed after a night of dancing around bonfires and singing lyrics that would make a brothel owner blush. He smells of sun and sand and joy. Geralt presses close on those nights, soaking in the feeling of Jaskier's body hard and real against him. Geralt picks up new scars. There's a gash on his right hip from some ghouls that he wasn't fast enough to dodge. 3 little dots on his left shoulder from a buxa's claws. 2 matching lines decorate one of his thighs, courtesy of a monster he could not identify, but killed anyway. Those 2 would be a lot worse if the local healer had not welcomed them, but she did, and he thanked her heartily for it in his own gruff way. He doesn't mind the scars. They are reminders of who he is, of his trade as a witcher. And if Jaskier likes to run his lips over them, or to touch them and then place gentle fingers over Geralt's pulse, as though to remind himself his witcher still lives and breathes, well, Geralt doesn't mind that either. When they tire of seafood and crushing waves, they move on to Verdun. Jaskier debuts new songs, most of them epics, some of which contain stories Geralt does not recognize. Only when he sits down one night to listen, really listen, does he realize that they are about his brothers. His brothers who have carved their names onto Jaskier's heart just as surely as Geralt, albeit in a different way. Warmth seeps through him as he listens, and it isn't from the ale. Those songs are on his mind when he and Jaskier separate once more. A nobleman in Carrick requests Jaskier's presence at his court for a week of revelry in honor of his marriage. Jaskier chooses to go. On the morning he is set to leave, Geralt strides into the nearest mage's shop and slams down a silver coin. I need to send a message. A flash of green light has Lambert on his feet in seconds. Magic. He could smell it. Cautiously he approaches the spot where he saw the light, a scant few feet from his campfire. There are no beasts he can see, no magical symbols that spell trouble. A tiny scrap of paper lies on the ground, marked by a wax seal that bears the imprint of a familiar wolf pendant.
Jaskier will be at Lord Slater's estate in Carrick next week. Keep him safe.
Lambert doesn't wait until dawn. He packs his bags, kicks out his fire, and sets off down the road feeling lighter than he has in months. Once he's in Carrick, a mere 3 days later, the fastest he has ever traveled, it's easy to track down Lord Slater. A few days after that, when Slater's guests begin to arrive, it's even easier to track down Jaskier. He follows the smell of comfort. Jaskier is somehow more colorful than the last time Lambert saw him. He's sun-kissed and heat-flushed in the summer's night. The patterns on his doublet are picked out in metallic thread flashing in the torchlight as he jokes and plays his way through the party. His lute is there, of course. It has a single purple ribbon tied to one of the tuning knobs at the top. Lambert waits to approach him, content with watching for a bit before he's noticed. The revelers love Jaskier. They cheer as he sings, smiles loose from music and fine wine, and Jaskier grins back at them, all sunshine and teeth. But no smile is as bright as the one on Jaskier's face when he spots Lambert. He finishes up the set with one final song, eyes on Lambert the entire time. The guests that reach out to him are brushed away as Jaskier saunters over to Lambert, face alight with joy, arms outstretched. Lambert didn't wear armor to the banquet. He figured it wouldn't be necessary if he weren't on the job. It would stand out, it would be hot and uncomfortable. All true reasons, all honest. Who was he kidding? Lambert didn't wear armor to the banquet because it would have gotten in the way of this! Of the heat of Jaskier's skin through his shirt and the firmness of his chest and the almost painful ache of a hug so tight Lambert thinks it might break him. Calloused fingers come up to cradle Lambert's face as Jaskier says with utter elation in his voice, "You found me again!" Then is softer. "Welcome back." After the party, they retire to Lambert's room. Jaskier strips out of his finery, chattering away about Lady Slater's cooking, and one of his necklaces catches Lambert's eye. "Is that a tooth?" Jaskier throws his head back on to laugh. "Do you like it? Geralt made it for me this summer in Skellig." Of course it's from Geralt. Lambert doesn't know why he bothered asking. "How are the islands?" Jaskier, fully undressed now besides his small clothes, throws himself onto the bed like he belongs there. He gestures for Lambert to get undressed as well, and Lambert complies. Shame still crawls up his throat and how much he craves what's about to happen, but it isn't as bad as the first time. There is no need to deny himself any more than the world has already denied him. Lambert crawls into bed and settles himself into the space between Jaskier's legs. He leans against Jaskier's chest, skin to blessed skin, and lets Jaskier's hands trace over his body, slipping into dreams with whispered words of ocean waves in his ears. That's the second time. It isn't the last. Eskel finds him again as the first leaves of autumn flutter to the ground. They camp by the side of the road, and Eskel pulls a satchel free from his saddlebags to offer to Jaskier's. It's full of spices from every corner of the continent, as carefully labeled and organized as the Witcher's potions. They eat like kings. A drowner leaves a scratch down one of Eskel's calves, and Jaskier sews him up. In and out dips the needle, in and out Eskel breathes, in and out gentler than he has ever felt. Jaskier's fingers more careful with each knot than Eskel ever is with himself. It aches, the closeness. Eskel prays for its return every time it ends. When the wound has closed enough to stand it, they jump into a stream together. The water is freezing, but Jaskier's body is warm. Eskel welcomes the fingers that thread through his hair, accompanied by a voice that teases him for its unruliness, and he resolves next time they're in town to buy some oils for it that smell of the same spices as Jaskier's skin. He finds one that's close, but no artificial scent compares. They separate in Sindaris. They swing back together in Temeria. Jaskier is filled to the brim with a feeling he cannot place. Contentment, he thinks one day, but that isn't quite right. It's not happiness, not pleasure. It soaks into his bones. It runs under his skin like lightning one moment and swirls around his throat the next. He does not name the feeling until the 7th time that year, when he and Geralt travel their separate ways. Geralt disappears over the horizon, his figure swallowed by the setting sun. Jaskier knows he will return in a week. He will ride back into town like a god from the old ballads and sweep Jaskier into his arms without a second thought. The sun rises. The sun sets. Geralt will return. He is alone for a single day. Then Eskel finds him, lips brimming with stories for Jaskier's songs, and Jaskier finally figures out what that feeling is. Or rather, what the feeling isn't. Jaskier is not lonely. He hasn't been lonely in months. A year, nearly. Not since the past winter, when 3 witchers lived together in Kaer Morhen, and he only knew to miss one of them. It will hurt more this year, he knows, to be parted from them all. But he also knows that as soon as the mountains thaw and warmth returns to the air, they will be back in his arms. The sun rises. The sun sets. His witchers will return. Purple light flashes in front of Roach. She doesn't startle, of course not, and Geralt pats the side of her neck as he dismounts. He has sent enough letters by Mage to recognize the flare of magic. The note is a single sheet of folded paper. It contains 2 lines of orderly handwriting. Eskel's hand. Bring the bard this winter, if he wants. Geralt is only a little horrified to find himself smiling down at the note. His brother has read his mind. He feeds the paper to his fire that night and sets out early the next morning, sliding into a booth at the local tavern just in time to catch the tail end of Jaskier's performance. He waits until they're undressed and relaxing by the fire before bending his mouth to Jaskier's ear.
Come with me to Kaer Morhen this winter.
Really? The sharp scent of excitement floods Geralt's senses.
Yes, it is long past time.
Jaskier turns to him with eyes that could put the sun to shame. Geralt! He whispers. He drops kisses on Geralt's forehead, his cheeks, the side of his neck. Jaskier presses his mouth to every inch of skin he can reach, and between kisses he murmurs, My dear, sweet Geralt, my heart! I would love nothing more.